2010 Honda CRV. Again, no screen. Pretty easy to swap out. It could be better than full Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and we've also got a reverse camera here. But first, I'm going to have to remove the dash. Let me show you the steps involved. With a pry tool or pick, just remove this top cover. It's just clips, so they'll pop out once you get them loose. The clips on that top cover were holding in these air vents. So next you need to pry these ones out as well. The clips that are holding this in face the windshield. So all you have to do is pull this whole cover back towards the rear window. The clips in this particular CRV are holding on extra tight, so I need to use a little bit more finesse to pop this cover off. But a little bit of patience goes a long way when it comes to removing these panels. You don't want anything to get broken, so just take your time. Work your way around the panel until you find all the clips, and then apply pressure directly behind the clip. It's that easy. And just like that, the vent assembly comes off. There's a plug behind it for the hazard light switch, and that thing's out of there. Next, there's two 8mm bolts that are holding in the actual radio, one on either side. Next, pull forward on the climate controls. It'll gently pop out. And then behind it, there is one plug. You just have to release the tab, and it'll come right out. And on the bottom, two more 8mm bolts are holding in that radio. You'll be able to see the brackets in this next shot. But there's still 4 additional plastic clips that are holding the radio into the bezel. It does take a little bit of prying action to get them out, but it's not that tough. You just gotta know that there's only those 4 bolts, everything else is clips. I just gently wiggle the radio back and forth towards the rear of the car until it comes right out. There's 3 plugs in the back. 2 are for the power and speakers, and 1 is for the antenna. Just unplug all 3 of them. I'll set this factory radio to the side while I give a quick test fit to the new Android radio set to replace it. It looks pretty good while it's in there, and the entire opening is filled up with beautiful LCD screen real estate. I've decided to recover the brackets that are on the side of the factory radio. I'm going to leave them in the dash so that way they might add some additional strength and rigidity, or that way they won't get lost in case they did decide that this radio isn't the right one for this car. It just makes sense so that way they're not lost. They come off pretty easy. There's 4 8mm on either side. And so I'll just store those here with the radio. I'll also need to capture the clips that were holding the radio into the factory bezel. They have to be reattached to the Android radio because it doesn't come with them in the box. They pop off really easily, but I sure wouldn't want to lose any of these, seeing how there's only the exact number that I'll need in order to complete the install. Now that I have all 4 of them, I can go ahead and place the factory radio out of the way again so that I can install these on the back of the Android tablet. They just snap right on. It's a super easy process. Just line them up and clip them on. That's it. But I sure think these are cheap enough the radio could have came with them. I don't understand why not. I suppose in all fairness, it's better to recycle and reuse anything you possibly can. So that's why I don't mind taking this additional step. I'll speed through reinstalling those brackets. Like I said, the bolts just go back in the factory holes, and the only reason I'm doing this is so that they don't get lost. So this step is totally optional. One thing that is remarkable about this Android radio replacement is that the harness doesn't require any cutting, splicing, or soldering. All the plugs fit directly into the factory harnesses and into the back of the radio, including the antenna. I thought that part was really nice. So I'm just going to make sure that all the plugs fit and then leave them here in the dash for the time when I'm ready to attach the power supply to the radio. There is also a GPS antenna, which I feel can only be used for monitoring the vehicle's speed. I'm going to go ahead and install it right here on the air duct inside the dash. I never feel like these things need to be installed external to the vehicle. GPS signal is strong here in Colorado, and so you don't really need a lot of exposure to the satellites. It works just fine. And let's be honest, these antennas are aesthetically unsightly and unnecessary, especially when they work just as well inside of the dash. It's peel and stick for mounting, but I'll go ahead and give you a shot of what it looks like once it's done. Right here you can see it from inside the windshield. The harnesses don't require any splicing, but I still need to know what the trigger wire is for my reverse camera. It turns out in this case it's the pink wire. Rear camera. This system has two external rear USB 1 wires. I put both of them in the glove box. Now on to installing the rear camera. I'm going to put in a DVR system as well as a backup camera on this vehicle. So there's going to be two different cameras. One's going to be pointed at the ground, that's going to be monitoring where you're going to be parking, while the top one's going to be capturing the traffic behind the vehicle, so that way you have a record of an accident or any other type of reckless driving that may occur while you're on the roads out here. These panels are all held on with press clips, so you just have to pull on them and they all come off. There was two 10mm bolts holding the handle in, and I'll show you those when we reinstall them. But for now, I'm making a cable head so that way I can pull the wire through the rubber boot for the trunk. I just think that this makes a much cleaner way to install it. The wires are in a factory location and they're protected from pinch points or other type of damage. Plus, they're not going to get in the way of anything. This is the best way to do the install. And as always, a little lube goes a long way. Yes indeed, smooth as butter. I'm only going to pull through the amount of wire that I need in order to be able to reach that camera. The rest will end up being tucked in the headliner. To route wire smoothly through the metal cavity, a wire fish is the easiest way to pull it. I'll just slide it in from one hole to the other and the wire comes right through. Just watch. See, right there it is, the exact length I need. I believe the ideal spot for a rear-facing DVR is right here in the center, right below the chisel. Since this is the perfect spot, I'll go ahead and use the factory-provided double-stick tape as well as a couple of Phillips head screws in order to make sure that it doesn't turn or fall off with traffic vibration. I'll go ahead and tighten the mounting bracket now, knowing that it would be pretty easy to readjust it if it's not angled very well later on. I can route the camera wire towards the part of the panel that faces the glass, so that way it just tucks underneath there and no additional holes are needed. It's a clean way to do it, and it also ensures that the wire is held out of place where it's not going to get snagged on anything. Just like that. For the parking reverse camera, I decided to mount it down here by the license plate. I explored a lot of other options, but it seemed like this was the only one that really fit. Like, I really wanted to mount it underneath the Honda logo. I felt like this wouldn't block as much of the license plate light, but it's just too thin. There's no spot in order to be able to attach the camera. It wasn't gonna work. Mounting the camera above the license plate is not a bad option. I mean, it's still shielded from the rain and the other weather events, but it is a little bit more exposed as well. So sometimes you just have to make a concession. To transfer reverse signal to both the DVR and the head unit, I decided to remove the tail light on the left side so that way I could attach to the reverse light wire there. So I'm just connecting all of the trigger wires in parallel. Simple enough. I'll just go ahead and twist them, solder them together, and then add a piece of heat shrink so that way the weather stays out. I'm using marine grade heat shrink, and once it's set, I can pinch the end shut to seal the hot glue. Yeah, no moisture is getting in that. I slightly peel back the harness that goes to the plug for the tail light. It's a dark green wire in here, and all I have to do is solder a connection into it so that way it can trigger both the DVR and the backup camera. This Honda factory harness is covered in a lot of black tape, but with a little bit of pulling action, I'm able to expose the wire that I need. I can make a loop out of it so that way I can trim off just a small section of exposed copper. I'll expose it by using a pair of wire strippers, just sliding the wire back, and then I can use a pick tool in order to create a loop within the copper itself. Next, I'll slide my trigger wire in between the loop that I exposed, crush it down, and add a little bit of solder so that way the joint is permanent. Yep, just like that. And with the tail light reinstalled, I can go ahead and fish my wire back to the interior of the vehicle and all the way through the headliner to the front DVR and head unit. I keep my wire routing clean and unobstructed by following the factory wiring. I'll use a couple of zip ties in order to secure the wires so that way they don't bounce around inside of this panel. But really, my camera is nice and clean right here by the license plate. As far as wiring termination goes on this vehicle, I used a cigarette lighter adapter to USB in order to power the DVR. And so then I'll go ahead and use a couple of T-taps so that way it only comes on with the ignition. I don't think a solder splice was necessary here for the simple fact that you may need to change it out Or maybe switch it over so that way it's running off of a full-time power supply instead of a switched ignition. Got that camera securely mounted to the windshield with the factory provided suction cup. So now I just need to finish plugging in the harnesses to the Android radio along with the camera, and we can check it out, see how it sounds. Another nice thing about the wiring harnesses is that they're keyed so that they only can fit one way. You can't mistakenly plug them into the wrong portal. And that's really great considering there are so many of them. There's 2 different USBs, a series of cameras, and AV outputs. There's a lot of wires back here. It's great for future upgradability, but on this particular build, we're not going to be needing it. I'm still going to go ahead and plug this harness into the back of the radio just so that it doesn't get lost. It's not like it's going to cause any problems inside of the dash anyway. The last thing I have to do is screw down this antenna for the GPS. It takes several thread turns, but it's still necessary in order to be able to track the vehicle's speed. After plugging in the power harness, the clips that we transferred from the factory radio are all that mount this radio into the dash. It holds pretty securely because the heater control as well as the vents are going to be also adding a little bit of support. All you have to do is line them up and snap them in. It's looking good. Now it's all about reinstalling the factory parts that we removed earlier. I'll plug back in the harness to the heater control, snap it back into place, reattach the hazard light harness to the switch on the vent assembly, and snap the vent assembly back into position. It lines up with press clips, so all you have to do is line it up and push it in. That's it. Now let's do a quick functionality check. I want to make sure that I'm getting audio and that my antenna is working as expected.
So we probably have to set, I'm definitely not getting any, there it goes. You can see I'm definitely not getting any audio. Okay, but I am there.
Since now I can see where my backup camera is aimed, I realize I needed to flip it over. I'll go ahead and tighten it down where I've got it aimed right at the bumper so that way you can see exactly where you're backing up into. Yes, that works great, and both cameras are following the backup trigger wire. So I can see when I'm placing the vehicle in reverse on either camera. Let's put it back in the park. That's awesome. This setup even retains the steering wheel volume controls. Check this out. Now that I've verified that both of my cameras are aimed in the right angles, I can go ahead and reinstall the rear cover panels for the tailgate. If any of the press clips didn't stay attached to the panel, you just have to pop them out of the metal and then put them back right before you resecure it. It's a real simple process and it happens very commonly. Once everything is lined up properly, you can just bang everything in with a slight punch. You gently pop in those clips in and you can hear each one get seated. These side sail borders are no different. You just go ahead and line up the clips and pop them in. Plug in the rear DVR camera before installing the cover for the chisel. Exact same process here. Line them up and bang them in. Oh wait, I think if I remove the protective lens cover, I might get a little bit better picture on the recording. If you're still with me this far, you're in for a treat. Here are those 10mm bolts I talked about that hold the handle on. There's 2 of them. You just want to make sure that they're torqued down so that way when you do try to shut the tailgate, you've got a nice substantial surface that you can grip onto. I make sure that mine are all the way torqued down. And then there's just a little cover that you have to pop in from one side and it clips down. Super simple and very aesthetically pleasing. From this view, you can see how clean it is to run the wires through the boot. You don't see any source of the wires being exposed. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. I wouldn't have had near as much fun without you. I'll have to see you in the lane. Peace.